Alrighty, thank you everybody. As my panel take their seats, I think this is one of the most important and significant panels of the day because we are told in our culture so often that abortion is a human right, that it's empowering and helpful to women. And actually, as many women know, the experience can often feel like the opposite. It can be the opposite. Our human rights are often suspended. We don't get access to that right to make an informed decision. We don't have all the information available to us. We're not made aware of alternatives to abortion. We're not made aware of all the information about that life in the womb and how abortion can impact our mental and physical health too. So over the next 30 minutes, we're going to hear a little bit about how this has impacted lives in different ways. I have three women here who've had brushes with this topic, but have found hope and healing elsewhere as well. And so firstly, I'm going to talk to you, Natalia. Natalia, your story has made such an impression on me when I've heard it over the years as well. And to see you here today able to share that to help everyone is really encouraging for so many people, so thank you so much. Natalia, take us back a little bit to 2021, was it? 2020. If your mic is on, if it's not on, don't worry, I'll share mine with you, how's that? Take us back to that moment you were facing an unplanned pregnancy. What happened?
So I found out I was pregnant at 19. I just got into a relationship at the time. It wasn't a very healthy one. So found out I was pregnant, not planned, and I was obviously faced with, what do I do? Everyone else, wanted me to have an abortion. The dad wanted me to have an abortion. Friends, I didn't tell my family, which obviously was a big mistake because I do believe my mum would have been so supportive. But yeah, so I always knew the significance of life. I was raised Catholic, but ultimately, I still went to the abortion centre. So I went, I think, 2 or 3 times to the abortion centre. First couple times, they sent me away because I was just distraught. And then on the third occasion, they gave me the pills to take home at the time, yeah.
So you turned up to the abortion centre 3 times, and 2 of the times you were visibly distraught. Did they, at any point, did they say, this might not be for you, here's alternatives that you can seek for other options? Did they offer anything else than abortion?
Not to my memory. I mean, I can't say 100% because it was quite a while ago. But yeah, they kind of said, oh, have you got a spiritual leader? At the time, I wasn't going to church, so I was a bit lost. So yeah, and it was just, lockdown had just started as well, so I was literally isolated, so.
So isolated and alone, you were expected to be able to make a decision without knowing all the information available. What about the kind of medical information? Were you offered a scan? Did you have any kind of concept about what the abortion might mean?
They just gave me like a leaflet. That was it. I didn't even know how many weeks I was really. I didn't have a scan. Nothing. Literally just a leaflet of it could be like a heavy period if I was to take the pills. Yeah.
I'm really sorry that people that we trust in our society have let you down in such a way. So you left that day with the abortion pill. And what happened next?
So I didn't take it straight away. I think I held on to them for about 3 weeks, and I just really, really didn't want to take them. But eventually I was with my friends that day at the time, and they were like, take them, take them, take them. So I ended up taking them eventually after a lot of pressure. Yeah, and I didn't know that there was a reversal or anything like that, so I just had to ride the wave at that point.
And that's such an important thing to pick up on as well, because we now know from doctors like Dermot Kearney and others that there is an option to provide progesterone in order for a woman like yourself who would like to change their mind at some point, to make that empowered choice to change one's mind, that's available. But unfortunately, medical providers are not making that known to women, not giving them that information that they deserve, that they have a right to when it comes to these choices that are so often referred to as their own medical health care. On which other procedures do you not get all that information? So yeah, I understand that would have been a really difficult experience to go through. And would you talk a little bit about how that kind of emotional and physical impact on you as a result of that? But also I know that you have found some healing since then. So speak a little bit to that as well.
Sorry, I didn't think I was going to get choked on. Yeah, God's been so good. No, I'm all right. Sorry.
Take your time.
Yeah, so it really did break my heart because I knew what I was doing. I don't even think I needed the scan because I knew what I was doing. So yeah, I took all responsibility. I think that's how I found healing. I think I came to God, and I just gave him my heart type thing, and he saw it, and I do believe that's how I received the healing, because I was just so transparent about it and honest. And yeah, and since then he's been so good to me.
Yeah, amen. Thank you, Natalia. And I know a big part of that journey was also with the incredible services that are provided through Rachel's Vineyard. But praise be to God first and foremost. And Rachel, you've played an immense role in so many lives of women who went through this procedure, probably not understanding the extent of what they were doing, being ushered along in a medical system that didn't provide accurate information. In your experience, hearing Natalia's story, which I know you've heard many times before, how common are some of these themes in the women that come to Rachel's Vineyard, not knowing that medical information beforehand?
I think it plays a huge part when women go to an abortion centre, because I don't call it a clinic because you don't feel better when you come out. They're actually going there looking for help, and they're thinking, well, they're going to get help here, they're going to get health care. And then the devastation, especially when the pills from Post came about, when people like, Natalia, if only it was just Natalia, but I meet hundreds like Natalia every year. Yeah. And it's the impact. And very often people will say, my safe place at home is no longer safe. It's a place where I know now this is where my child died, and that plays a huge part in it. Yeah. Like you say, no scans, no medical support, and just no aftercare. And to be honest, thank God. Because why would you want, when you've been affected so badly by an organisation, why would you want the help from them?
Yeah. And I know another theme that you've told me about before that comes up is coercion. And the way that abortion providers are meant to be screening for women who are either, like Natalia, pressured by friends and family, or pressured by a boyfriend, or whatever it might be. Is that something that you see? Can you share a little bit about women who've been impacted by coercion?
I'd say the majority of women that come to Rachel's Vineyard, like Natalia, that was massively pressurised, not only by her friends, but by a so-called boyfriend. I see that all the time, the pressure that's put on them, but also more subtle is the pressure of just the father not saying anything. I'll leave this decision up to you. And by saying that, in other words, this problem is always going to be your problem.
Right. Your body, your choice, your issue.
Yeah, and that's how it's going to be. Or, more openly, where they actually say, I will split up with you, I will leave you if you don't have the abortion. Yeah. No abortion provider the women that have come to me have ever said to them, are you coerced? Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's blatantly obvious when these women are being dragged in by the boyfriends, by the mothers. Some of them, that have come to Rachel's Vineyard that said that they arrived at the abortion centre, black and blue, shaking. It was obvious this wasn't their decision. Yeah. I think about a woman that I was chatting to last night that said I could share some of her story. And she went to an abortion centre on her 16th birthday. On her 16th. So therefore, she was pregnant when she was 15. Did they ask her how old her boyfriend was? Because if they had, they'd have realised that this woman actually was raped. And, you know, and she was dragged there. I mean, what a birthday to have. And then the birthdays ever since then. Oh. And she was quite late term, and she had to, you know, what she thought would be just pushing out the product of conception, but was a whole sack. And she saw her son, fingers, eyes, everything. And that traumatised her for many, many years till she came to Rachel's Vineyard, where the real truth was looking at what had happened, and then the glory of God, of realising that that's not the end, what they saw. That's not the end. The end is hope, hold on, pain ends, because they are actually alive. They're alive again in heaven, and they love us.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think one of the biggest kind of ways that the profession can lie about this is through the false use of language, to call it a clump of cells, to not explain what a child is, and the horror to realize that later on must be difficult. Rachel, you've started Rachel's Vineyard because of your personal experience with abortion as well. I know that you've had two in your life. What would you, going back to your own experience, what would you have liked to have happened differently the day that you went to a clinic?
Well, I actually went to a family planning centre. I thought this come into my head, what you've just said as well about the wrong language. I just want to touch on this for a second and then tell a bit of my story. The amount of women, I can think of two in particular, that actually said, has it, not the baby, not my baby, but has it got a heartbeat? Because for them, if it had a heartbeat, it was going to be human, and there was no way they were having an abortion. Has it got a heartbeat? And one woman was told it was a clump of cells with a pump. That's how far from the truth they were told. And one woman said, I asked her, you know, does it have a heartbeat? And she was told it's viable and it's got an electrical current. And I said, well, what they actually said was it's alive and it's got a heart. But yeah, back to myself. I went to a family planning centre. I was asked one question: will this affect your mental health? And I knew to say yes. I knew to say yes. I didn't even know what that meant. And I have to stand in the truth, Lois, and I actually know that for me, not for the majority of people I speak to, but for me, no one was stopping me, because the fear and my own life experiences, I needed this problem to go away because I had a problem. I didn't want to be a mum.
Yeah. And do you think you were properly informed about the long-term consequences on even a woman's health, apart from anything else?
Zero, absolutely. I never knew where it would take me. I never knew that the regret that I would later feel, and how when I look back now, that for many decades I was actually grieving because it didn't solve the problem. It didn't stop me being a mum. See, I had abortion because I didn't want to be a mum, but it actually just meant I was a mum to children that I'd killed through abortion, Jude and Paul, that I know are in heaven. I know I've got hope back, but I had all those years of just in a desert, not knowing that I was grieving.
Yeah. But you have managed to use your story to bring hope to so many. Can you talk for a minute about what goes on at Rachel's Vineyard and how do you bring that healing and hope?
Yeah, so Rachel's Vineyard is a Christian retreat. You don't have to be Christian there. We have all people of all faiths, because at the end of the day, abortion tears are abortion tears. So Rachel's Vineyard supports anybody, and I mean anybody that's affected by abortion. So it's the mothers, it's the fathers, it's the grandparents, the siblings. We've had abortion workers come. And it's a safe place to grieve, where we, you know, on the team, we've got a huge team. We've got a psychotherapist on the team. Even though it's not a therapeutic weekend, we want to just keep everybody emotionally safe. And we've got women and men who have had abortions, and also those that haven't on the team. And we use what's called living scriptures to help people, guide them through the stages of grief. We have an anger session, because we're all chuffing angry, with our abortion experience. And I think the bit that always, I think, makes a huge difference, two parts, is Saturday morning, we share our story, but we don't share it from the day we had an abortion. We share it from our childhood, and there's a lot of dysfunction, a lot of abuse, and occasionally somebody will say, yeah, I had a really good childhood. So they're either going to hear it for the first time that it wasn't great, or they're going to actually hear that, yeah, I did have a good childhood, but I was raped at university. And if we don't heal from what hurt us, we'll bleed on people that didn't cut us. And the last thing we do is we have the memorial, we have the funeral we never got to have. Because the majority of abortions, there's no body to bury, so the grief goes on and on.
Yeah.
And then we just journey with people for as long as they want, Lois.
Yeah. Oh, incredible. Well, thank you for your incredible work to support so many women who've been impacted. Excuse me, my voice going. And I know that's been so helpful to Natalia as well, and to others. And if I can share, Natalia is here today with her husband and beautiful baby boy in the audience as well. So it's so lovely to see the impact that God has had in your life and so many. Now, Suzanne, let's bring you in here. Suzanne, you've kindly joined us from overseas to be here today to share your story. So thank you for coming all this way. And you have a bit of a different story. So you had a pregnancy that you very much wanted and were excited about. But then you went to the hospital at 22 weeks and something unexpected happened. Can you talk to us about that?
Yes. At 22 weeks, I went in for a level 2 ultrasound. I can hardly look at you two without crying. I love your hearts. I went in for a level 2 ultrasound, and half my amniotic fluid was gone. And the tech excused herself and said she needed to go get a doctor from the practice. But I did not expect what was about to happen. The doctor came, what felt like to me, flying in the room in the most animated voice saying, half your amniotic fluid is gone. Your baby must have a chromosomal abnormality not compatible with life. You could die. Your baby most certainly will die. You need to have an abortion. And I will say, through years of infertility, God and I got very close, and I thank God that his voice was the loudest in my head, because that was not always the case in my journey by any stretch of the imagination. And I immediately refused. We went kind of back and forth. In frustration, she said, fine, come back in 2 weeks. This time I made sure my husband was with me, and at 24 weeks, all the amniotic fluid was gone. And she said to my husband and me, you definitely need to have an abortion. Your child has a chromosomal abnormality not compatible with life. There's no way your child will live outside the womb, and if for some reason your child did, your child would not live long and have a whole host of issues. And when we adamantly refused yet again that we would not abort, she sent us to another doctor in the practice that we sat across from in the doctor's office. And it was the most surreal, bizarre experience, because this doctor, in the most calm way, as if talking about nothing of any significance, kept telling us we were not understanding that we needed to abort. And never in our wildest dreams did we think we'd be sitting across from a doctor having to convince that doctor that our child had not lost her valuable, that she had not all of a sudden become disposable, and that her diagnosis did not define her if she did have that diagnosis. And when my husband so lovingly said, look, we won't abort, so what will you do for us? And he said, in all my years of practice, everybody in your position has aborted. So go home and wait for your baby to die, and you will give birth to a stillborn child. And fast forward, we had an amazing conversation with my amazing mom, so on fire for Jesus Christ, and she said, Suzanne, is there still a heartbeat? And I said, well, yes. And she said, if there's a heartbeat, there's hope. And in that moment, one person, one capital O, the Lord Jesus Christ, one lowercase o, my mother, breathed hope and life into a desperate situation. And all of a sudden, we found a bounce in our step, and we started storming the heavens. We went to church, met with a pro-life doctor who said she would call our main OBGYN the next day. She called him and said, won't you at least honor their request to fight for their child? Won't you at least do some testing? And he said, the only test I will offer this family is an autopsy. And in that moment, we got into the hands of different doctors. And 3 months early, at 1 pound, 2 ounces, our precious Rachel Mary was born, and she is here with us today.
Can you give us a wave, Rachel? What an applause for Rachel. That's great. What a wonderful story that you were able to fight and continue to fight for the truth for your daughter. But how ironic that in a situation that's meant to be empowering, or we're told is empowering, you were essentially being bullied by doctors.
Yes.
Not giving you all the information that you needed, not helping you to make an informed decision, but pushing you down a path, and how often that happens. What do you wish was different? If you could change things about the medical profession in these situations, how would you have run your story again from another point of view?
That is such a thoughtful question. You know, my daughter has this line, and I steal her line all the time. She wrote the 3 doctors that insisted we abort her and said, she shared the gospel of Jesus Christ. She said she forgave them, and she said, please use your power to protect, value, and fight for all life, not destroy it. And what I would say to the medical field is, they took an oath to do no harm. They took an oath to protect all patients. That child in the womb is a patient worthy and deserving of the same protections as those outside of the womb. So I would ask the medical field, and actually Rachel and I beg the medical field, honor why you went into medicine. You went into medicine to protect, to value, to see every human being and their intrinsic worth. And no child is defined by a diagnosis. Rachel's happened to not be true. It was a misdiagnosis. But even if her diagnosis was spot on true, she was still valuable. Even if she died in the womb, even if she had every diagnosis that they said. So our heart's cry, but more importantly, it is the Lord's heart's cry, is that when doctors sit across from parents that their child is running into trouble in the womb, to say to them, your child has value. We will give your child health care. Abortion is not health care, and no doctor should ever, ever, ever utter the words abortion. Death is not health care. Death is not loving. Death is not a solution.
Natalia, let me come back to you for a question as well. What would you like to see different in this country today so that other women who are left isolated, alone, pressured by their friends like you were, if you could rerun your story, what would you have liked to have a different, whether that's when you went into the clinic and the response that you had from them, or the response from society? How can we better help and support women in crisis pregnancies?
I think I just went in and I just wanted to be like saved from the situation. So, I mean, it's hard, isn't it? Like I would want there to not be abortion, but at least offer the woman a scan. I feel like I can't say 100%, but it could have given me the strength to keep fighting, like, and to choose life. So at least offer a woman a scan, and those pills need to go. Yeah.
Pills by post, you think?
Yes, pill by post.
Absolutely. Pills by post do need to go. And we see so many stories, don't we, across the media all the time with women not receiving these pills as if they're paracetamol sent through their door, not understanding the consequences of what they're doing. And pills by post, I think, has been the most damaging legal or political decision within the last few years, well, maybe joined with a few others, to negatively impact the rights of women to know important medical information and to make decisions for themselves and for their children. Rachel, in your work at Rachel's Vineyard, I'm going to kind of ask the same question to you. You've seen so many women impacted. I mean, there's 250,000 abortions in the UK every year. 1 in 3 women will have an abortion in their lifetime. What changes do you see that need to be made to restore women's right to make a really empowered choice and to make the right decision for themselves and their children?
I think for any choice to be a real choice, for a start, it can't be just one choice. This is why I'm so against the word, pro-choice, because they're not, they're pro-abort. And so, to actually give women and men real choices, why don't they? If the abortion industry want to be really open and transparent, why don't they actually give people more time? Why tell a woman that's 14 weeks pregnant that this is the last week that you can make your decision? So it's lies upon lies. Why don't they tell them about the Good Counsel Network, that there is help out there? Or when a woman turns around and says, I have to have an abortion because I can't afford this child, that's not actually a reason to have an abortion. Why don't they tell them about the Good Counsel Network, about 40 Days for Life, about the support that's out there? And when a woman rings up and said, I don't know if I've made the right decision, I've just took the first pills, why not tell them about abortion pill reversal? Why not tell them about the great work that Dr. Keeney's doing? It's because at the end of the day, they don't want those choices. And actually, if we knew those choices, in a different place we'd be. I had a woman ring me this year, and she was booking an abortion, and she said, I'm actually still pregnant. And through just being able to give her love and support and helping her, she's kept her baby. That's all she needed, was to be given hope and love. Listen to these women. None of us want to kill our children. So give us proper alternatives.
Absolutely. Why do you think that information is withheld? Yeah, clap for that. Absolutely.
It's withheld. I personally think it's withheld because they've just got one agenda, and that's abortion, whether it's population control, whether it's, the spiritual realm plays a big part in this, I think it's because, and they're not going to make any money, are they? But I think the biggest shock, the biggest wake-up call for me was when women actually wanted to find out about abortion pill reversal. I thought, wow, you really just want to make sure their children are dead. And they don't want to give them about healing. They don't want to come to Rachel's Vineyard. I remember Natalia saying to me, she was very brave and did a video about her the trauma that she went through. And afterwards, and she was saying, what, I think I might have come to Rachel's Vineyard too early. I said, if you hadn't have come, you'd have repeated it. Because what's not healed, we repeat and repeat. And that's why people come to Rachel's Vineyard, honouring 14, 15 children. It's not because they're evil or somehow, just have no morals or using it as a form of contraception. It's because they're repeating the trauma, trying to make sense of it. Like I always say, if you don't heal from what hurt you, you'll bleed on people that never cut you. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Absolutely. And we've just got a few minutes left, but Suzanne, I want to come to you finally. Because of how much of an encourager you are. The short time we've known each other, I know that you're a great encourager. And, there's so many people in the audience here today with different stories, different backgrounds. What is your word to them, whether it's somebody who is not sure where they stand on abortion, or whether it's somebody who wants to be able to support women who face pressure, like so many do, like you did, but doesn't really know where to start? What can we be doing as a movement to make abortion unthinkable in our country and to support every woman and every unborn baby?
Boy, that is such a thoughtful question. I got to think of how to answer that in a short period of time.
Take your time.
That is
It's
such
okay.
a thoughtful
Time.
question. I will say this is such an opportunity not only for society to be a voice, but for the Church of Jesus Christ, which honestly, we experience this in America. I don't want to speak to the UK because I don't know your experience, but the church is largely silent on this issue. And when the church is silent, when the society is silent, we are not loving women well. And women and men need to know they are loved, they are seen. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to feel like you're backed into a corner and to know that they can run to the Church of Jesus Christ, that they can run to a medical field that's a real medical field that will see both woman and the child and the man, all three, mother, father, and child. And there are so many ways for us to engage. We can get involved with different organizations like pregnancy resource centers are a fabulous way to counsel women in crisis, to love women. But honestly, I feel like the most important place we can go to is into our churches and ask our priests and pastors, if they're not already, to be out in the community as well as in their church and say, no matter what you believe about God or you don't believe in God, women and men find themselves in challenging situations. We all do. We all need the hope of Jesus Christ, whether it's an unplanned pregnancy or something else. And the Church of Jesus Christ should be that place that says, if you're in an unplanned or unwanted or crisis pregnancy, Jesus loves you. The Church of Jesus Christ loves you. We care. We are a safe place to run. And I will tell you guys a defining moment. One time my daughter, we're allowed to be outside of the abortion clinic, and Rachel leads 40 Days in Marietta, Georgia. We love 40 Days for Life. And a woman came up to me, and she was getting ready to yell at me. And I introduced myself, and I said, "Hi, I'm Suzanne. What's your name?" And she said, "Peyton." And she looked at me, and she said, "I didn't expect you to be so nice." And I laughed, and I said, "Well, quite honestly, I didn't think you would be either. I thought you were going to yell at me." And she said, "Look, I know why you're here. I know you want this Planned Parenthood to close." And honestly, you all, in the most tender, innocent way, she said, "Where will women go if Planned Parenthood closes?" And with tears in my eyes, I said, "I ask your forgiveness, and I ask forgiveness of the Church of Jesus Christ, because we haven't done a very good job letting women know that we love them, we see them, and we will journey with them. We will walk alongside." I love what Rachel said. No woman wants to have an abortion. No man wants to have an abortion. So often, it's hard circumstances. It's fear. It's financial. It's whatever they might be. And Jesus is up there saying, "Church of believers, rise up and be my heart. Show them we love you. We see you. It's okay to be afraid. We will journey with you. You can cry on my shoulder. I will help you get resources." There are so many resources, financial, spiritual. But most of all, don't we just need one friend like my mother was? If there's a heartbeat, there's hope. My mom didn't beat me up. "Well, you better not be thinking about abortion." She knew we weren't thinking about that. But so often, we fail men and women because we lecture instead of love. We all need hope, whether pregnant or not pregnant. And so that's what I say, the Church of Jesus Christ, if we would rise up and be the face of hope and love like my mother was to us, again, we weren't going to abort, but we still needed hope and love. If we would go to our churches and say, let's get out in the community, let's talk about it from the pulpit, from a place of the Lord's heart, which is always love, compassion, hope, mercy, tangible help, we could turn this culture around and turn it into a culture of life.
Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, can you continue that applause for your entire panel? Were they not fantastic? Thank you so much to all of you for sharing your stories.